fuck every Redditor, by the way. Fuck you, Reddit. Bunch of fucking cocksucker cowards. They're fucking on the front page of Reddit. Oh, Slava Ukraini! We need to save the free world and democracy. But you're not even able to be exposed to dissenting perspectives. You don't even know what the other side is. You don't even know if the fucking thing you're peddling is true or not, because these big tech companies whose cock you're taking for granted, which is firmly stuck up your fucking ass, have not even permitted you the fucking ability to know or even test whether you are wrong about this or not. And you're sitting there acting like you're a fucking freedom fighter, or you're promoting you're not promoting a cause, you're a cuckold. You're a fucking bitch. You're a cuckold and a bitch. So Jackson's banned. Just gonna give you a recap. Jackson's banned. Now, what is he banned for, right? He's banned for no fucking reason. He's banned because the State Department said so, just because he's giving expression to the Russian POV slightly. He was being so careful too, by the way. And that was enough cause to do a full fucking hatchet job and hit job on fucking Jackson's account to try and get him permanently deplatformed. Permanently deplatformed and taken off the internet. That was their goal, okay? So, with that being said, that was their intention, right? You know, now he's banned, serving his second strike, and you know, they're clearly, he had to delete all of his videos on his fucking channel, right? So check this out. This is the part, okay? This is the part. Check this out. Even Noam Chomsky is now chiming. You know Noam Chomsky, the same guy that has always been a shill of the State Department? And get this. This is the best part. The fucking forefather of BreadTube. The forefather of BreadTube. The ideological and theoretical founder of BreadTube. And Vosh, Ian Kaczynski, Vosh, that Vosh. The founder of Voshism. Noam Chomsky, the patriarch of Voshism, and all of Vosh's ideas about socialism and anarchism or whatever, right? You know that, Chomsky? Even he is now saying that the culture within the United States is more totalitarian than the Soviet Union. Because we are literally not permitted to hear the other perspective. This is not even World War II level censorship. Even in World War II, it wasn't this fucking bad. Because we now have this thing. We have such a fucking extreme level of control over the ability for individuals not only to access other just to think. Even our fucking faculties of thought are so severely curtailed. And people don't notice it because there hasn't been any laws that have been passed banning Russian perspectives, but the whole means by which we consume information is completely being censored. Now, I want to ask you a question. If you believe we still have a First Amendment, I want to ask you this question. So this is about adults. This is coming from adults.
Based.
We must spread the word like butter crack.
Thank you, Azazel. Appreciate you so much.
Based.
Thank you so much, Captain
The founder
Waffles.
of the BreadTube subreddit is r/Chomsky mod. Literally, BreadTube is the modern incarnation of the Chomsky
right?
State Department
So
left.
check this out, guys. So this here, right here, this is cable news, or it's the newspaper. It's cable news, though, right? The newspaper is negligible in terms of what people read. So this is cable news. Now, technically, here's what they've always said about cable news. Cable news is not censored. It's just that because of the free market, there's like 5 companies that own everything on cable news. But if you were to hypothetically get that big, you could have your own spot on cable news and say whatever you want, right? In terms of your perspectives. Okay, fine. So then the internet came about as a way to access information outside of this monopoly, right? So 26% of US adults now get their news from YouTube. And in terms of people who think that it's an important way to get news, for most who get news there, you know, they say it's the most important way. Or these ones say it's an important way, but not the most. But 72% overall think it's an important way to keep up with news, okay? So they can't use the excuse of the free market because of the, on the free market, a bunch of creators have emerged with perspectives that have proven to be popular with people, right? Well, there was the problem of hate speech. And as we know, hate speech is heavily correlated with violence. You know, like the mass shootings that have happened and the tragedy at Charlottesville, things like that, right? So, I mean, I think it's reasonable we should ban neo-Nazis. I think it's reasonable we should ban hate speech and we should ban things like that, right? And then, you know, as Trump got elected and time moved on, and well, you know, neo-Nazis should be banned, but I mean, also, you know, these other far-right people, all these other people, I mean, we need to ban them too, because it all goes back to that violence. Okay. Then what happened? Well, there's a lot of discrimination against LGBT people. We really need to ban hateful people against who are opposed to LGBT people. Okay. Then Black Lives Matter happened. And they decided that the cause they need to take up is, well, we need to even ban more people, right? So they just, started banning people because of this real world stuff. And it's mostly cultural stuff. And it's mostly about not being a big meanie, right? So that's the excuse they're having to ban. It's just like public etiquette, right? That's they're banning people. Then something interesting happened. It was the pandemic. Oh my god! Monkeypox! Oh my god! Right? Because there's a new one now. It's called monkeypox. But before, there was actually a real pandemic, right? And it didn't take long for big tech to decide that, look, this is a health crisis. And we need to clamp down on misinformation when it comes to the public's health. Because, I mean, if people are misinformed, that could lead to a lot of death. And that could lead to a lot of, harmful outcomes in terms of public health. So, okay, well, now we're starting to censor people who are exposing, Pfizer corporate stuff and... Okay, I guess that's sounds legitimate. That sounds like a legitimate reason. Joe Biden gets elected. And now, things just can't help but keep getting more and more interesting, right? Because now, it's January 6th, 2021, and there's an insurrection at the Capitol. now YouTube says, anyone who questions the integrity of the process is, culpable and is guilty of misinformation, right? Sorry, is guilty of putting our democracy in danger. I mean, oh my God, this could lead to political violence. This could lead to civil unrest and social unrest. So you can't talk about that anymore. And this is a huge crisis. So then there's another wave of censorship, right? Okay, so far, they've given us a reason where there's an input and there's an output. They say if you spread this type of information, it's going to lead to this type of material harm, specifically on our own country, right? And the left ate all of this up. They didn't say anything. They didn't object to it in any capacity. Now, the special military operation in Ukraine comes to pass. Oh boy. Oh boy. For the first few months, they could not find an excuse to censor people like me, Jackson, and others who were trying to tell the truth about what was going on. They could not find any excuse, either on Twitch, nor on YouTube, nor even on Twitter. They couldn't find any excuse at all. And then they realized that they don't need to find an excuse, and that they're just going to censor people anyway. They have no legitimate reason, even according to their own standards of precedent and logic, to be doing this, because even if it's all wrong information, the net material harm that it'll lead to is just people who are not going to get on board with a war agenda. So they had no excuse. They didn't even have a reason to censor anymore. Other than, and this is almost explicit now, you cannot oppose the latest political agenda of the people in power, or you're gonna fucking get censored. I mean, when has this ever fucking happened in this country to this extent? They don't even have an excuse. Nobody gives a fuck because nothing's going on in terms of the law, so people think it's all okay. The precedent isn't based on that. It's the rationality used to justify it. That we have adopted this culture now where it's somehow considered acceptable to just censor people who oppose the latest agenda being promoted by the institutions and by the status quo. I mean, it's pretty fucking, way worse than 2001 to 2003. I mean, this is worse than the Patriot Act. I mean, nobody seems to fucking notice just how bad and unprecedented this is. I am saying this without being hyperbolic. This culture is setting a precedent that makes it inevitable that we are sliding into fascism. If not, that we're already fucking there. We are in fascism. This is actual fascism, guys. They don't have a justification. They don't even have a fucking rationale. They are literally starting to censor people almost entirely on an arbitrary basis that they're spreading ideas and harmful thoughts that are harmful not because they lead to any material harm that anyone can fucking point out, but because they harm consensus for war. Oh, they do damage, all right. They do damage as far as consensus for war is concerned. The misinformation that Jackson is allegedly guilty of is not going to lead to any material harm. It's not going to have any outcome on the course of the war in Ukraine. The only effect it's going to have is to give the public a perspective on the war that they previously had no access to. Meanwhile, you have these cock-sucking fucking Redditors. Fuck every Redditor, by the way. Fuck you, Reddit. Bunch of fucking cocksucker cowards. They're fucking on the front page of Reddit. Oh, Slava Ukraini, we need to save the free world and democracy. But you're not even able to be exposed to dissenting perspectives. You don't even know what the other side is. You don't even know if the fucking thing you're peddling is true or not, because these big tech companies whose cock you're taking for granted, which is firmly stuck up your fucking ass, have not even permitted you the fucking ability to know or even test whether you are wrong about this or not. And you're sitting there acting like you're a fucking freedom fighter, or you're promoting you're not promoting a cause, you're a cuckold. You're a fucking bitch. You're a cuckold and a bitch. You're just doing something that doesn't even matter if you do it or you just do it. You're just cucking yourself for free. You're not even allowed to have the opposite perspective. So why would you cheer on and jeer on like this as if you're like making a difference individually? Oh, I'm expressing my free will to say Slava Ukraini. Except you don't have a fucking free will, because you literally have to say Slava Ukraini, or eventually, one way or another, you're going to get fucking censored. And you have the audacity to sit there and act like this is a movement of people on the internet coming together. I mean, this is the truth of all these fucking hashtag revolutions and the Arab Spring and the Maidan, all these fucking color revolutions where everyone was like, fellow Redditors, we are anonymous, we are legion, we are making social change based on our hashtags. But we're going to take for granted the social media big tech corporations that are actually controlling this whole fucking thing. And we're going to, no, this is us. We're the ones making the difference. Hashtag revolutions, Slava Ukraini, BLM, trans lives matter, like all this shit, right? These people literally believe they're part of a movement. You're not part of a movement. You're being cajoled into voluntarily cucking yourself, even though you're not even allowed to have an opposite perspective. You can say free Taiwan all you fucking want, or free Hong Kong or whatever, but no one would ever be allowed to voice an opinion contrary to that, to convince, like, let's say I was a China streamer, right? And I got as successful as Jackson. Well, that actually might turn the tide as far as people's opinions on that is concerned. They might say, I used to only be exposed to the anti-China perspective, but now that I've been exposed to everything, my opinion's a little more balanced, and I'm not saying free Hong Kong anymore. I'm saying hands off China, right? I wouldn't be allowed to rise to that level. They would censor me before I would even be able to rise to that level, despite the fact that, audiences find it informative and useful, as they did with Jackson's stream when he was reporting on Ukraine. There would be no fucking way for anyone to just know the other perspective. You're just going to be the front page of Reddit. That doesn't reflect the truth. That just reflects what you're allowed to see. You're not allowed to see the opposite. You're plainly just not. And the opposite perspective has to be confined to these marginalized websites. So apparently a normal, average, and neutral person can't know what the truth is. And that's also why, look, it's actually fucking so sad. It's actually so sad because you have a situation, I kid you not, I'm shitting you not, right? You have a situation where now you have a new generation of these dream like Minecraft stands, right? Those people, those are like people who are like 8 years old to 11 years old or some shit, right? 8 to 12 years old. Those are the most liberal, like brainwashed NPC people in the world, dream stands, right? Because they see the front surface web, which rightfully they're not allowed to see anything else, and also rightfully because the dark web is a fucked up place, right? But like they're so fanatically committed to that they're gonna grow up associating alternative media outlets and all that kind of thing with like, oh, these are just like dangerous conspiracy theorists, toxic, fascist, Nazi people, right? So you have an extremely totalitarian culture and precedent that's been set. I mean, they can arbitrarily just censor whatever the fuck they want. And before now, they've always had an excuse. We all knew their excuses were bullshit. We did. You knew they were bullshit, and I knew they were bullshit, right? The thing is, they don't even have an excuse anymore. They're just doing it to quell dissent. I mean, there is no... I would love to hear another explanation for why misinformation on a fucking war that's happening on the other side of the world could be of any harm. I mean, why... Let's say I was just a guy who was a liar, and I was just like... Oh, let's say there's like a war going on. I just have to be hypothetical, right? Let's say there's a war going on in like Latvia, and I'm like, the Latvians are using exploding cows to attack vegans, and there's a Latvian separate... I just made shit up. That's like misinformation. I mean, even if I was lying and not telling the truth, what material harm does that create? What material harm does that... You're just what? You're not allowed to... is humor allowed then? I mean, it's like there's no way of being able to vet the facts and the truth in a way that there's a universal consensus written in our Constitution somewhere about, all right? We are always going to disagree about facts as a society. That's why the Constitution doesn't say, the First Amendment, the people are entitled to have freedom of speech only if it's factual. No, our Constitution says freedom of speech. Why? Because people are always going to disagree about facts, right? So why is it harmful to spread misinformation, even if the charge could be sustained, which it can't be, keep in mind? Look, one of the biggest pro-Ukraine streamers, this is what boils anger inside of me, okay? Adam Something is by far one of the biggest pro-Ukraine YouTube content creators. Hey, YouTube, are you listening to this, YouTube? Adam Something was a content creator in whose content your views were reflected the most. We debated Adam Something, and on the facts, on the verifiable facts, we fucking rolled him. So he represented your ability to defend whether or not Jackson's content was misinformation, and he failed, which proves you can't really sustain the view in an objective way, at least, that it is misinformation. But again, even in the worst case scenario, even in the event that it was misinformation, it wouldn't make a fucking difference. It would not do any harm. Not any demonstrable harm, at least. Unless you want to try and argue it could do some demonstrable harm that we're not able to be privy to. It just couldn't. It's stupid. It's not even something worth entertaining, right? So that's where we're at now. And again, people haven't noticed it because what they've done with the whole censorship thing is it's like a boiling the frog, right? I mean, but you guys aren't thinking like lawyers when you're subjected to those tricks. You're just like some random guy sitting on your couch and you're like, oh yeah, they've been censoring people for a long time. But you haven't read the fine print. Every other reason they've had for censoring people, they've always had an excuse, which if the excuse was true, would be reasonable, right? The excuse has never been legitimate. Don't get me wrong, it's never been legitimate, but at least they had the courtesy of giving us an excuse. The fact that there's this new precedent of censoring people over Ukraine, they don't have an excuse anymore. So now, I mean, the next stage is they're going to just censor people who don't support Joe Biden. In the upcoming midterms and in the upcoming general election, you know, conservative voices are going to be censored. MAGA forces are going to be censored on YouTube. And no one's going to make a big deal about it because everyone's just going to say, well, that's what they've been doing for a long time. Well, at least in the past, they gave us excuses. They're not giving us excuses anymore. They're just fucking wielding this power in an arbitrary way. I mean, I'll give you some good news. I'm not just gonna be here to be pessimistic. I'll give you some good news, I guess. The good news on the flip side, I guess, right, is that every time I go out, this was when I was in Austin, I was in Texas, even when I was in LA, and especially here in Michigan, every time I go out and talk to normal people, just talk to strangers, right? Everyone's secretly based. Everybody's watching BitChute. Everybody's watching InfoWars. Everybody's low-key like, yeah, you know, they're censoring everything on that surface web. We know that's not the truth. We know that's not the truth. We're getting real shit, right? We know that's not the truth, okay? So we're already critical of everything we see on the surface web because we know it's not the truth right now. We know the globalists are lying to us. We know the elites are lying to us and they have an agenda. I mean, everyone I meet is a conspiracy theorist. And it's given me the impression that everyone who you see on Twitter and everyone who you see on Reddit, those are the 2% of the glasses wearers like, yeah, what do you mean? Trust the science. And they have that fluoride stare and they're literal NPCs. So this is how it works. Let's say you're at a bar, right? And there's a bunch of bartenders, or there's, you know, a cook or whatever the fuck at a bar working the back. And there's that one bartender guy, and he's like, trust the science. Oh, yeah. And then everybody who's like interacting with him, oh, yeah, sure. Sure, Eustace. Yep, trust the science. So everybody's putting up a front. So this guy, Eustace, is totally clueless, and he thinks like everyone's a leftist NPC just like him, right? But little does Eustace know what people really think deep down. The real views they have, which they're concealing, because Eustace is a fucking snitch, and he's gonna get them fired if their real views come to the surface, right? And that pretty much describes our society right now. That pretty much describes the entire society. Everybody's fronting. The only people I ever see who are ranting and raving about conspiracy theories, I'm gonna be real with you, it's when I walk into a small business, an appliance store, or something like that. And it'll either be the owner or it'll be the workers there. And they'll just say whatever the fuck they want. The workers at that I was at an appliance store the other day. The workers at the appliance store, oh, they're going off. The Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and all that kind of shit. Uncensored, saying whatever the fuck they want. They're talking about drag queens. I mean, they are literally saying whatever the fuck they want, right? You want to know why? Because they can. They don't work for a corporate institution which is going to force them to have certain views. They could literally say anything they want.
Based.
We are living in a dictatorship of the glasses wearers.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Appreciate you, man. Okay, you keep spamming me to debate Jay Dyer. Dude, don't ever fucking spam me in my chat. I guess I will have to contact him or something, because I haven't been contacted and you're spamming me anyway. So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's what we're dealing with, guys. I mean, we're dealing with that. Everyone's either putting up a front, or they're already in a community or an environment in which they can say whatever they want with no filter, and there's no lip shits to be found. But all that's offline. They're not on the internet, and they're not doing it on the internet because they don't, to be completely honest, they don't trust anything on the internet. They don't trust anything. You know what they do trust? They trust these little videos they send each other. TikTok videos, and their WhatsApp groups, and, you know, BitChute stuff, and InfoWars and shit. That's really, I mean, there is a profound shift in the people's consciousness in this country. And you will never even get a hint of that if you're on the surface web. There has been a profound shift in the people's consciousness since COVID. COVID was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the censorship. And since then, there's a whole underground site of, you know, resistance, right? In terms of people's opinions. The issue is that it's not organized in a centralized way. So it's hard for us to find each other on the internet. We're only able to find each other offline. And we find each other very easily offline, right? Because it's every other person offline on the street. It's just on the surface web, everything's censored or obscure. It's either obscure on some website no one knows about, or it's censored. That's why I like Truth Social so much, because everyone knows about Truth Social. And I like Truth Social because everyone's there, right?
Thank you for always speaking the truth in these dark times. Also, please give us more debate content.
Thank you, Amila.
Gorilla,
and
son,
yeah,
Gorilla, son.
Don't worry about that, because I'm very aware of the debate drought and also how that has negatively impacted the channel. I mean, I'm aware of these things, guys. Don't worry. I'm aware of how that's negatively impacted the channel. I'm aware of how it's literally a necessity for my streams to do debates. So yeah, there's going to be debates. Don't worry about the debates. As a matter of fact, right after I cover this content and a few other things, we are going to get right into a Twitter space, and we're going to be doing a Twitter space. And thank you so much, Ball.
From my experience, most people are inherently conspiratorial and skeptical of the government. It's just that they live in real life and aren't terminally online.
Thank you so much, Ballin. I mean, yeah, you're right. You're right. One of my short-term goals, when I say short-term, I mean like within the next year or the year. Within the year or the next year, right? I want to somehow pioneer a way for us to find each other. We can't find each other on the surface web anymore. So we're going to have to use some cryptography. We're going to have to start using actual dog whistles, which we're already doing, by the way. And I don't mean dog whistles for like anti-Semitism or something. I mean like dog whistles of like, yeah, we're based and anti-establishment, but the establishment can't censor us for this dog whistle, right? So we're going to have these. I don't believe in alternative platforms. I just don't. Now, Rumble, I can really see making my HQ because Jackson's doing very well on Rumble. But at the same time, Rumble is not a place, I don't think, where you can grow. I think Rumble has a very limited audience when you're just stuck there. So we do have to go to the surface web where 99% of people are. And we have to find a way to find each other, right? And then we have to grow that way. So I always believe I'll always have to be on the surface web somehow, right? Even if I get banned from everything, I'll find a way to get on. If I get banned from everything, I will literally come back in anonymous form. And I won't even say that I'm Haas. I'll create a brand new community based on this anonymous guy. And I can do that. Because I have the sauce. I have the content. I'm not famous because of legacy or precedent. I'm famous because of the content, right? There'll be a few people who know it's me and shit, but most people won't know it's me. And I'll come back in anonymous form. You know, I'll have VPNs and shit. I'll be on Twitter primarily is what I mean. On Twitter. I'm talking about Twitter. YouTube, please. I don't have any plans for ban evasion, YouTube. I mean Twitter, right? And that's what I'll do. I'll always be here. I'll always be on the surface. I'll be on the surface to drag you back to Tartarus. Be on the surface to drag you back to the underground. And I have no plan. I don't believe in fully going underground. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's possible. I think you gotta have a foot on the surface web, where it's at, right? And I will never give up. I will never give up. I will always strive to publicize and reach people. Always, no matter what happens, I'll always try to do that. I'm honestly like, look, the one thing that would be hard maybe is if the payments got fucked up, but there's always Rumble's payment system. If Patreon got rid of me and YouTube demonetized me, Jackson, that's what happened to Jackson. Besides the Patreon, Jackson, he's on Rumble's thing, which I would also be on, right? And if that's not enough to make a living off of this, I would find other ways to try and get by. It might slow this down by a year or two or a few years. But where there's a will, there's a way. I'll always find a way. Even if I go back to law school, which I don't think is going to happen, unless I can get it online, right? But I'm having meetings and shit next week about that. I am dedicating my life to this. I'm dedicating my life to it. I will never go away.
Keep fighting the Nazi libs.
Thank you, Vladdy. I mean, even if it gets to the point where I have to move to another country, I have to move back to Lebanon, or I move to Russia or China, I'm always going to be here. I'm always going to be fucking working for this. Always. 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 And guys, I'm here to promise you something. I always tell you this. If anything ever happened to me, just know it was them. Just know that. And I'm promising you that with 1000% certainty. Okay? If anything ever happened to me, you know who to blame.
Up to this date, there's been no way to scale the reproductive health of our planet, so no one should have authority to judge the parameters on its climate.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right about that, Forky. You're right about that 1000%. So yeah, I want you guys to know that. I'm in here for the long game. We just got started, right? There's no life for me except a life dedicated to building the party of the working class and seeing that party to victory. And, you know, I'm here as a streamer, but this is my ultimate goal in life. This is ultimately what's motivating me. This is a means to an end. It's just a means to an end. So we're going to watch what Chomsky has to say, which actually may shock you, may surprise you. Daniel Baker, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you so much, Daniel Baker. Appreciate you so much, man. Thank you. Look at this. Chomsky. The US is living under a totalitarian culture much worse than the Soviet Union. Soviet Russia could access BBC, Voice of America. Today, Americans are not permitted to hear what Russians are saying. The US has imposed constraints beyond the Soviets. Chomsky's right. Just hear him in his own words.
So take the United States today. It is living under a kind of totalitarian culture, which
Forky, good morning, Revolution. Forky, thank you so much, man. Shout out Forky from Twitch. Been a long time. Hopefully, you know, hopefully I'll be unbanned one day, right? But I'm not optimistic. Not optimistic, but, you know, pretty harsh with how they banned me, right? Permanently. Over what, right? Maybe I'm just not repentant enough. Maybe I'm just not repentant enough, right? I'm not repentant. I'm sorry. I really don't think I did anything wrong. I don't. Maybe, I mean, I know they have new rules now, and that's why I wouldn't primarily stream there if I got unbanned, if they still have those rules. But it's kind of like, it's kind of fucking disgusting how they completely banned me. So like, what, I can't even fucking collab with Twitch streamers. I can't even go to TwitchCon. I can't do anything like that. I mean, okay. You made your statement.
Has never existed in my lifetime and is much worse in many ways than the Soviet Union before Gorbachev. Go back to the 1970s, people in Soviet Russia could access BBC, Voice of America, German television, if they wanted to find out the news.
Thank you so much, Comrade Chomsky. Yeah, they could access foreign Western media in the Soviet Union.
If today in the United States you want to find out what Prime Minister Lavrov of Russia is saying, can't do it. It's barred.
Hey, Vosh, are you going to talk about this, Vosh? This is your fucking daddy, Vosh. Are you going to talk about this?
Americans are not permitted to hear what Russians are saying. Can't get Russian television, can't access Russian sources. That means also that fine American journalists like Chris Hedges, one of the best, is cut out, barred from Americans because he happens to have a program running on RT, Russian television. You want to find out what the adversary is saying, which is of utmost importance. You can maybe tune into Indian state television and find it out, or you can read it on Al Jazeera. But the United States has imposed constraints on freedom of access to information, which are astonishing, and which in fact go beyond what was the case in post-Stalin Soviet Russia.
I mean, it's just true. It's just true. Now, Chomsky, maybe he's toward the end of his life and he wants to repent for all his sins. And that's why he's just telling the truth now. Because he's spread a lot of malicious lies in his lifetime. Which is why we have BreadTube, by the way. That's why we have it. But now he's seeing the light. And it's pretty clear that no one can say he's saying it because he's biased. No one can say Chomsky's a Russian shill or a Russian agent. Chomsky's always been a liberal. He's always been a pro-Western liberal in almost every case. He's been critical of the policies of the US government. Who hasn't been, right? But ultimately, he's siding with the free world most of the time, right? He said the Soviet Union was an immense victory. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a victory for socialism. That's what he said. So no one can say he's a pro-Russian shill who's biased. This is a man who's a liberal, who's observing what's happening in the US's media culture and on social media, and he's saying, holy fucking shit, I have never seen anything like this. This is worse than even the Soviet Union during the 70s. And even he's admitting that now. And this is a champion of the free world. This is not an agent of a foreign power.
Chomsky was cheerleading Gorby, and Gorby was telling the Soviet people that Chomsky was in charge in the USA in the late 80s. Never forget.
That's true. Thank you, Chris Morlock. Yeah, the Soviet people were almost exclusively exposed to Chomsky as a representative of the US. So when the Soviet people thought all US media was like Chomsky, you know, they thought it was like very self-critical, and they thought it was, you know, very intelligent and whatever and composed. And the Soviet people, I mean, they consumed a lot of Noam Chomsky. He is probably culpable in some manner himself, at least to some degree, for the collapse of the Soviet Union, just because of his ideology and how much he was able to. That's why Chomsky has always been an asset of the State Department. I think Chomsky was propped up to trick not people in the West, but the Soviet people. He was propped up to like create the appearance of a socialism, a critical socialism that's critical of the US, whose net outcome is going to be more destructive toward actually existing socialism than actually existing capitalism, right? And that's why I've always thought Chomsky was an asset. I think they deliberately had this guy propped up as someone who the Soviets would trust, but who is sneakily kind of infecting them with the Western liberal ideology. Regardless, just like Henry Kissinger, who is also an agent of US imperialism, Chomsky can recognize that the West has lost the plot when it comes to Russia, especially with its just completely indefensible, it's entirely, as I should actually add, it's entirely indefensible censorship policies. I mean, no reasonable person could defend these. No reasonable person could defend that. I mean, think about it. How could you fucking defend that? How could you defend that level of censorship? Could anyone really defend that? Could you convince anyone really to defend that? I mean, I don't think you could. I think it's fundamentally indefensible. And I think most people would consider it that way too, if they were even confronted with knowledge of what's going on, right? The awareness, I mean, Glenn Greenwald's trying to do a great job of bringing awareness to the censorship. No one wants to listen to him. They all call him a red-brown, whatever, actor. So, I mean, you have to understand that it's extreme. Oh, look at something that's trending on Twitter. So this is a term trending on Twitter that YouTube is now banning. Just want to let you know that. This is not something you can say on YouTube anymore because it's considered hate speech, according to YouTube's policies. Pretty insane, right? It's considered hate speech. So yeah. That's just a whole nother level.